Hello. Today I'm going to be discussing it's an older book called The Trees. It is by Conrad Richter. This version of the book is actually has a foreword by David McCullough. This is the first book in a series called the Awakening Land trilogy. It is set in the pioneer sections of Ohio and Kentucky and this area as well as Pennsylvania. It starts out with the trees, the next book is the fields, and the last is the towns. And this book actually was turned into a miniseries, a TV miniseries, in 1978 with Elizabeth Montgomery and Jane Seymour. And it kind of covers not just pioneers, but also the different types of pioneers. Some of the uneducated farmers, and then you would have some of the more educated lawyers and people that would come as well. So it kind of gives you the different types of people you would have seen in the pioneers part. And this original book was published in 1940. This copy was actually done in 2018, excuse me. And the book starts out with chapter 1, The Vision. They moved along in a bobbing, springly gait of a family that followed the woods as some families follow the sea. In the midday twilight of the forest, the father's shaggy gray figure looked humped back, but the hump was a pack. In the pack under his rifle was a froe and an auger, a bar lead and powder, blacksmith's traps, and a bag of Indian meal wrapped up in a pair of yellow yarn blankets. Sayard carried the big kettle and a little kettle, packed with small fixings. Jenny, the quilts thronged to her white shoulders, and Axa, a quarter of venison with a bloody folded buckskin her father had taken since the last trader. Even the littlest ones, Wyatt and Sully, had their burdens of axe, bullet mold, and clothes. Only their mother, Jerry Luckett, went light, for she was poorly with a slow fever and could lug no more than the old blue Revolutionary great cup with the mended slit in the right shoulder. It was the game that had fetched the Lucketts out of Pennsylvania. Months before the chestnut burrs had begun to sharpen, Worth Luckett looked for a woods famine. It would be like nothing since the second winter after Yorktown, he claimed. He spent so much time in the woods that nobody talked to but Sarge, his old hound, that when he opened his mouth, Jerry had learned to pick up her ears and listen. For a month he had been noticing signs. The oaks, beeches, and hazel patches would have slim masks for bears and pigeons this year. Deer Pass lay barer than any time he could recollect of fresh droppings, and now the squirrels were leaving the country. He claimed that he had stood on a log near the old Mingo hemlock and seen them pouring like a mill through the woods. They ran as if a pack of black Seven Mountain wolves were on their tails, or worse, red piney squirrels tearing at the bucks to geld them. The very floor of the forest was gray and black with them. When they came to Patty's Run, they didn't wait to take up and over the trees, but plunged in like a beaver. And the live ones fought over the drowned ones' bodies. If meat on the go wasn't likely to be tainted, Worth would have caught himself a club and laid out 100 without a waste of a dram of powder. As it was, he just stood on his log like a duck in thunder, waiting to see if old Harry himself was not at the tail end. And when last nothing came, there was nothing behind him, nothing allowed but famine. The Luckett young ones stood listening to the tale with open mouths. The homespun over their hearts plopped in and out like the flanks of those sweating squirrels. They would have given the last stitch off their backs to have seen it. They wanted to go up west anyhow, and now they couldn't wait till tomorrow. But they daren't show it in front of the father. No, they just stood there gaping and dying to hear what the mother would have to say. Jerry sat quiet on her homemade hickory rocker. Oh, she knew how bad Worth wanted an excuse to get away from here. Her eyes slanted down toward the clay floor, her mouth rounded a bit as if she took all these things, good, bad, and indifferent, and was running them quietly around inside her lips. Her mouth was so gentle, yet could shut up like a mussel shell. She looked up, and there was no telling what lay in her mind. "You aiming to cross the Ohio?" she asked. Her eyes glinted a moment dangerously at the man. He gave a nod. Even her father, Sayre saw, didn't know what she say or do. He took out his clay pipe and made to fill it, but his eyes never stopped watching her face. The young ones could hardly stand the waiting now. Their mother went on grimly. "I told you I'd never go back there." Hope died in the young ones' faces. She dropped her eyes and stared a long time across the doorsill. Then around the cabin at the familiar slab stools and pungent table and hand-whittled loom and wheel. And across the doorsill again to the might of the grave in the clearing. None of these things could they take along. After a while she stared up halfways at them. "And yet," back in her mouth she complained, "what's a body to do if the game's left the country?" The four younger ones turned and made stiff and pious passage from the cabin. Once out in the twilight, they threw themselves on the ground, rolling and somersetting, leaping and kicking their bare feet, whooping and giving vent to their feelings like a pack of young coon dogs let out of the pen for the night's hunt. That is just the beginning of The Trees. This is by Conrad Richter. Like I said, this is an older book, but it's an excellent book. I have read this myself. The whole series is really good. It is about the pioneers in the Ohio Valley. And if you get a chance to see the TV miniseries, it's also really excellent. I thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.